All right, so it's a bit of a podcast with a difference this week. I've got two guests and they're not together. First of all, I've got Asif from the Manchester United Muslim Supporters Club. So I should say, first of all, Eid Mubarak, should I? It's not too early. It won't be by the time this goes out because we are recording like 30 odd minutes, I think, before you break fast for the final time in Ramadan. So how's that feeling?
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, to be honest, it's quite, well, I speak for myself and my friends, we always feel quite sad towards the end of Ramadan. It's a strange one. It's obviously to the outside, it might seem like a really tough month, and it is at first, but you kind of really get into it, the routine, going to the mosque, praying, and just really like just kind of clearing your head spiritually. And I think, yeah, I'm going to miss it.
It doesn't feel that way whenever I see Eid being celebrated. It feels like people are very happy to be over.
Yeah, no, I just think Eid is Islamically, we have two like fixed celebrations in the calendar year for us, so we're meant to celebrate it, and it's like our Christmas. So even though, yeah, we're kind of sad that Ramadan's gone, at the same time, obviously for the actual day of Eid, we should make it into like a special celebration.
Does this mean there's a difference between how you get together with other United fans? Does that come into it? Like, are you celebrating together in a football sense?
Do you mean from within our supporters club?
Yeah.
So we won't probably do anything this year together. We didn't do one last year actually either, because you usually spend it with your family. So you'll go to your parents or, whoever, and you'll just do like a family thing. But we are thinking maybe next year we'd do like an Eid celebration, not just really with the Muslim members, but also with the wider membership base. We'd like to do that. It'd be a good way to get more people involved and just understand a bit more about our celebrations.
So your aim is to get more people involved, I guess. Tell us a bit about how long it's been going on for and what you see as the point of it and the aim of it.
Yeah, so we've been about 18 months. We have about 3,600 registered members in 85 different countries all over the world, which is pretty amazing. And we've got around 130,000 followers online. So yeah, I mean, in terms of growth, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, United do have a huge fan base and they do have a lot of Muslim fans, not just here, but also abroad. So, if you think about Indonesia, Malaysia, and countries like that, they have a lot of Muslims that support Man United. The original aim really was just to engage with the club on some not issues, but items that we felt would enhance like the match day experience of a Muslim fan, for example, having somewhere to pray. And we pray at fixed times, so we pray 5 times a day. And for each prayer, we have to pray them within a set time period. So going to games, what we would be doing is when it's that time to pray, we'd be like, okay, let's go and find like a corner or go and pray under the stairs or something, which is not nice for us. And it's also not convenient for other fans. So speaking to the club about just setting up like an accessible multi-faith room was like one of our main objectives, which we managed to do. Prove the food options, which we managed to do. So really, it's really that, just to kind of get more involved with the club and any issues that may be more, not generic, but more linked to us as Muslims, we'll try and speak to the club about. Obviously, going forward, we would like to do more where we kind of engage more with non-Muslims as well. There's a lot of negativity around Muslims and, a lot of stuff going on in politics and whatnot, which just gives us an opportunity to try and speak to people. I think you don't really know what people are like unless you actually speak to them.
And I guess you probably push up against some level of ignorance there anyway, because do people assume sometimes that it's divisive, that you want kind of your own club? Because we would think, well, hold on a minute, United is not meant to be a divided fan base anyway. Why can't you just settle in with everyone else?
Yeah, I think I understand what I said, but I think it's a bit of a silly argument because we have like the disabled supporters club. They meant to like not have one because they're disabled. We have supporters clubs for different regions. Why is it that when we set up, it's caused such an issue? And I mean, people won't like me saying it, but I just think that generally there is a dislike of Muslims currently, and it's quite blown up with politics and everything. I think that puts a lot more pressure on us. Seen as divisive, we're seen as people that don't want to integrate. Oh, what better way to integrate is there to get more of us involved with the football club that we support? It's a British institution. So I don't see it like that, and I think it's a shame that that's how it's sometimes portrayed. But at the end of the day, we want to engage with fans as well. Look, just the prayer space. So we know from members that have joined us that for 10 years they were speaking to the club on and off about arranging a prayer space, not our prayer space, a multi-faith room, and it didn't happen. And we managed to sort it out, speaking to the club within 6 months. Not because I've got like a special contact at the club. It's just by engagement. So if anyone is part of a particular group and they just feel that their needs aren't being met, we got a comment a few years ago from someone who was, I think, like a gluten intolerance, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, why have you got this special treatment? And I've got gluten. Well, speak to the club. You never know what might happen. We don't see it as being as segregating ourselves. If anything, we want to get more involved.
Right, gluten-free Reds. But you mentioned politics there, right? So I'm well aware that Muslim is not a byword for migrant, but when people like Jim Radcliffe say what he says, does that further inflame it? Does that make it even more difficult at matches? Does it make it more difficult to be a United fan?
I wouldn't say it makes it more difficult to be a United fan, if you want to, depending how deep this conversation is meant to go, but it makes you feel, not just with him, he's just, he said what he said. We spoke to the club about it and we feel the matter has been dealt with. But what I would say is when comments like that are said, it goes deeper than that. Are we British? Are we meant to be in this country? Do people want us here? Yeah, I might not be that, some of the comments, on the statement that we put out were like, oh no, it's about illegal immigrants. And, he wasn't talking about migrants. Well, when I'm walking down the road, you don't know whether I'm what I am. You just see me as different because of my color or whatever. And we have to address those issues and accept that they are there, so that's why we felt we need to say something. And the comments like that aren't helpful at all.
What did you make of the flag, the Stretford End flag, about proudly colonised?
Oh, I wish we'd done it. Like, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. And, it means a lot because it shows that we're not the only ones that feel that way, or we're not the only ones that were upset with what was said. United, you mentioned about United, the fan base is meant to be together. United is a country, United is a club, and Manchester is a city that is built on the back of migrants from all different backgrounds. Isn't that the whole point? United, but under our different umbrellas. I don't see that as an issue. And, we're always willing to engage. So you don't have to agree with us. You don't have to like my religion. It's not a problem, but let's at least talk.
I think I read in United We Stand. Have you interviewed a couple of the players? Or at least I certainly saw something about Mazraoui.
Yeah, there was something with Noose in the iftar, recent iftar, and there was also, we met him last year at the club. So yeah, it might have been one of them.
And how I don't really need to know how it came about, but it's like, was that surprising to him that there was a Muslim supporters club set up? And because he probably would have been, I'm guessing he would have been buzzing for it, because obviously when the players come here, I know they get looked after in a way that didn't used to happen a couple of decades ago. Like, people are more culturally sensitive and they've got people helping them out and putting the kids in schools and stuff like that. But I guess that at all times, it must be quite isolating to come to a new country as a North African, and he probably doesn't have that many contacts, so he's probably really buzzing off it, was he?
Yeah, and he spoke really nicely of us at the iftar about when he found out about us or the iftar, he'd always support it. And we've met him a couple of times, and he's just such a nice guy, like very, very down to earth and easy to talk to, very humble. I think for us though, the players are pulled from pillar to post with all sorts of fan engagement stuff and sponsor stuff. So I don't think, we'd ever expect that we'd be seeing them a lot or talking to them a lot because they're so busy anyway. Really, it's more for the fan side. And if we get to engage with the players, then that's brilliant. So we've been very lucky. So I live in Cheadle, and Noose has been going to the mosque locally to where I go. So we've managed to see him pretty much every day throughout the whole of Ramadan, which has been really nice to see. He's just a very normal guy.
Fair enough. And you mentioned finally that, on this bit, that you want to engage more with non-Muslims. So what's the plan there? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a non-profit, so we're restricted in terms of what we can do ourselves. So we're self-funded mostly from the founders. So working with United would hopefully open up opportunity for us to do something like an iftar where people, not just our members, but other people can come. It would have to be something interactive. I think things inline can get quite toxic. I don't think it's the right platform for it. There are some people that have genuine questions, and we see them online. There are a lot of people that don't, and they just, no matter what, they're going to think a certain way. Those fans that genuinely have questions and they want to know why we do things or why we exist or anything like that, let's meet up. Let's find a way that we can do that. And if it's via the club, that would be great. If not, we'd have to think of other ways.
Lovely. Well, I want to ask you some questions about Bournemouth coming up, but first I asked a Bournemouth fan from up the cherries in all departments. Very strange recording to the podcast this week, because I did this about 3 hours ago, not that you care, in a recording studio in Nottingham. It's a podcast that you've got up the cherries in all departments, which is quite a mouthful on the face of it.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's an old chant that used to be shouted at Dean Court before they rotated the ground. It's something that's still present. We cut it down a bit on YouTube to up the cherries, but I know it's still UTC IAD on all the streaming platforms. Um, how it all come about was that fans used to say up the cherries and then used to reply back in all departments because we are a smallish club. We are a club where everything needs to work in tandem and work together to actually get us to where we are today. So yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. A lot of people, when I speak to them, turn around and say, "What the hell does it mean? Where's it come from?" It is as simple as that. It's an old chant, and it's quite unique, I think.
Fair enough. A lot of people won't be aware of that, I think. So yeah, it's good to know.
Yes.
You've been watching Bournemouth for the best part of 2 decades now. So
Yes.
how has that experience changed in that time?
Well, it's been a bit of a crazy journey. So to give you a bit of my background, I moved down from Reading, believe it or not, to Bournemouth. The two sides, Reading and Bournemouth, despise each other, although I kind of got a foot in both camps. But I moved down from Reading and I started watching my local football team. Now, at this point, AFC Bournemouth had just been relegated to League Two and were sat on minus 17 points. This was the season where Rotherham United were also on minus 17 and Luton Town were on minus 30, which actually relegated them. Rotherham got out of it quite quickly, but we struggled. And we started off the season with Jimmy Quinn, somebody who again had a foot in both camps. He was at
Mm.
Reading and also played for Bournemouth. And as a manager, as a player, Jimmy Quinn was a good player. As a manager, not so much. He was one of those that didn't really have much tactical nous. He was a striker by trade, and when I first come down here, we had a three-sided ground where the Ted Shed is now. So that is actually a temporary stand. It's going to be built upon and made permanent stand during the summer. And we're going to expand that heavily. But it was a three-sided ground, and we couldn't fill the three sides that we had at that point. We were playing games against the likes of Aldershot, Morecambe, Accrington Stanley. I'll be perfectly honest. It was dire. It was some of the football was dire under Jimmy Quinn. We started off the season with Kevin Bond. Kevin, I think would have done a good or a decent enough job, but everything happens for a reason. And that season, we was beaten by Blythe Spartans in the FA Cup. It went to a replay. We was beaten by them up there, and that was the moment where the football club decided to dispose of Jimmy and bring in a certain manager that I think the whole of the Premier League will have heard of. Uh, I'll be honest, when Eddie Howe was appointed, I thought this is just a roll of the dice. This is just a gamble. You know, this is probably not going to work. But let's give it a go. Let's get behind him. He's a legend here. Um, how wrong was I, to be honest, Andrew? Because it was a work of genius in the boardroom to appoint a genius on the pitch, a genius who of managerially. To be honest, Eddie Howe was a good player. Not many people know that, but he had to retire quite early because of numerous injuries, and he was one of those players that was tough, but always had those awful injuries that he just couldn't get over, But um, to now, it is a completely different club. It's a completely different scenario. Never in a million years did I ever imagine this. In fact, when I first moved down here, I thought that before long I would have been supporting a non-league side or Worse still, that the club would have died shortly after. I thought it was going to be the shortest flirtation with a football club ever, rather than something that has been an absolutely amazing journey. I still have to pinch myself now, to be honest.
And now you play Manchester United on a Friday night, but you play Manchester United on a regular basis.
Yes. Yes. If anybody turned round and said, we was going to play Manchester United once back in those days, it would have been like, oh, so we'd have to actually get past, Blythe Spartans. And if we get past Blythe Spartans, we probably have to get past somebody like Northwich Victoria or, Canvey Island or someone like that to actually get there. And we probably won't do that. So to actually play in Manchester United, to be on the same pitch as Manchester United, is unbelievable where we've come from. You look at history, though. Of course, there was a very, very famous FA Cup victory for AFC Bournemouth all those years ago against Manchester United.
84, I think, something like that.
Yeah, 1984. I understand, and if I'm right in thinking, a certain Harry Redknapp was also involved in that game as well.
I'm old enough to remember that the one about 5 years after that, the United won. At Dean
Yes.
Court, yeah, that's that. But yeah, it was always a cup game. But have you kind of got used to it? Because you came up, went back down, came back up, and are you sort of cemented in the Premier League now as far as you're concerned, or is it still just a bit like pinch yourself without being patronising?
It's surreal because of the size of our stadium. It's surreal for me because, of course, I know where we were, and I felt that. And don't get me wrong, the journey from League Two, loads of people think that it was just plain sailing. We just went through the divisions, on this mazy Wrexham-like run. It wasn't like that. There was a point where Eddie Howe left the club, and firstly, Lee Bradbury was appointed alongside Steve Fletcher. I think Bradders did a decent job, actually. I think he did a decent job in League One. He got us into the playoffs. We lost the semi-final against Huddersfield Town, which was a shame. But overall, I don't think he did a bad job. Not particularly great the following season, and of course we made the move then to appoint Paul Groves, and Paul Groves, probably the less said about that, the better. He was somebody who he had the disposal of the likes of Steve Cook and other players, who were bought in by Bradders and didn't play them. And I did an interview with Steve Cook, and it was quite fascinating actually. And I can remember it well. Never in a million years did we expect him to go on the run that he did, but overall, when he was sacked, Eddie decided he wanted to come back. I know through the grapevine, and this is what I've been told. Don't take it as gospel. It's not come from Eddie Howe himself, but I was told that Eddie Howe's wife didn't really like Burnley very much, so they wanted to come back to the South Coast, and the journey
It'll
continued.
very much upset some of our listeners from that area, I'm sure. I'm sure there's some lovely bits around Burnley.
Yes,
Can't
most
bring any to
definitely.
mind straight away. But it's become really obvious that the TV authorities do not consider the match-going fan at all. And
No.
that's why your game at Old Trafford was a midweek one this season. It's a night game. It's just a nightmare to get in and out of these places midweek in this country. It's obviously hours and hours of travel. And for our lot, despite all the whatever jokes people throw at United, will have a sizable contingent who want to make that journey many, many hours south.
Yes.
And on a Friday night, it's kind of like, well, you better hope that Bournemouth's a good night out then, and that there are enough hotels and stuff. Do you has it bothered you a lot, because you're miles away from a lot of places where football exists at the top level?
Yes, it irritates the hell out of me. It really does. I occasionally go to away games, In the top flight, it is very, very expensive, as everybody knows. But some of the journeys are just made impossible by the TV schedules. They don't consider the fans. Most recently, we had a 12:30 kickoff against Sunderland, of all teams, down here, which was completely inconvenient for them. It seems like as well, and considering this is the one that really pees me off, is considering that how much Newcastle United, and Eddie Howe mean to Bournemouth fans, because we got quite a good relationship with them as well. Um, for obvious reasons, but it's always they decide to put the Newcastle game at a stupid time. It's normally 12:30, and it's not just for us; it's for their fans as well. Because of the Eddie Howe connotation, they want it on TV. But why can't it be at 4 o'clock on a Sunday? Why can't this game, be at, if they want to televise it, put it at 4 o'clock on a Sunday. If there's a game between Crystal Palace and Fulham, for example, that they want to put on TV, you know, that could be a Friday night game. That's not far to go. Even if you have to go Nottingham Forest and Wolves or somewhere like that. But to the expectation of making Manchester United fans travel all the way down to Bournemouth on a Friday night, it's just greed, mate. It's just greed, and yeah, it irritates me.
And when it's Monday night, it's 2 days off work. So, yeah, it could just be considered. The thing is that football fans are often seen as Luddites in this, but just bringing them to the table could really make a difference. And it would be good to see some instruction on it. Anyway, how has all this changed or benefited or been detrimental to the supporter culture? Because obviously numbers will have gone right up since your success. But how has it changed, particularly the away support?
We've got quite a good following on a Saturday 3 o'clock game. If Southampton were in the division, which they're not, which we like to remind them, we will take a massive contingent. It does affect the figures. It does affect the figures. If an evening game or a 12:30 kickoff in Newcastle, we're not going to fill our quota. The other one, most recently, we had a night game against Everton at their new stadium, and there was a couple of things going around the internet that we couldn't fill our away end. Come on, how far is Bournemouth from Liverpool? It's a long, long, long way. We are a small club. We haven't got the massive amount of fans. We haven't got fans dotted around the country. If you are going to walk around, Manchester and look for Bournemouth fans, you're going to be really, really hard pushed. If at all, it's going to be impossible. If you go walking around Bournemouth looking for Manchester United fans, I think you could have an easier time on it. That's the way it is, and it is unfair on the whole football culture. I feel for the Man United fans who are based in Manchester, like yourselves, and go to games on a regular basis and then can't go to this game because of work commitments. It's just not fair.
We know what they think of us, legacy fans, anyway. I want to just talk about Bournemouth to sort of finish off in terms of where you are and where you are pitched. I was asking you about if you're established in the Premier League, but what you seem to be established as, from an outsider's point of view, is a very well-run stepping stone, right? So you get all these players in who are kind of like, all right, they're being tried in the Premier League. They're usually really good at it. You make a profit on them. If they don't leave for free, you make a profit on them anyway. It looks like, like Semenyo most recently, I watched Hussein playing for Real Madrid and everything. It's amazing to see. And maybe you lose like Evan Nielsen next, I don't know. And people talk about Iraola. So he's been linked with Man United. Do you think it'd be a good fit for Man United? Do you think that he is all that, or did you get a massive new manager bounce for him? Because he had a very good reputation for a bit.
When he first got to Bournemouth, and I'm going to hold my hands up and say this now, I was a big fan of Gary O'Neill. And, I think Gary did a very, very good job with what he had that season, first season back in the top flight. Iriola come in, and I think it was the first 9 games. He couldn't get a victory. We had some real stinkers in there, including, a defeat against Everton, which was, to be honest, an absolute mess. And when I look back at that spell, I think, well, you know, it seemed like he was trying to play a style of football that the players weren't capable of playing. Lo and behold, it all clicked. It was just a light bulb moment, and it all merged together. It all worked. It was amazing to actually watch that all happen and all materialize. And then, of course, we had the game at Old Trafford, which was probably one of our best that season. It was an excellent, excellent performance. Do I think he would be a good appointment for Manchester United? I think he would probably get the team playing the way he wants. Manchester United are able to attract, let's be fair now, and I'm a realist. Some people are going to hate me for saying this in our fan base, but Manchester United can attract a better caliber of player than AFC Bournemouth can. You'll also be able to keep those players as well that you bring in, but it isn't an overnight fix. The one thing I would probably throw back to you, though, is looking at what Ruben Amorim was doing beforehand, and he went through quite a shocking run. Seeing as Michael Carrick has only lost 1 game and turned a lot of those draws into wins, don't you want to give somebody who is a Manchester United legend a chance, somebody who understands that football club?
Yeah, me personally. So I think that Iraola's done an amazing job. I think he's obviously really gifted, and I think so are lots of coaches. And United keep trying to find the unicorn. They keep trying to find this person who can do everything from starting with nothing to building a team, bringing youth players in, which is really important to us, but also like winning really quickly. Now, I think for all the big fan bases, all the big teams, I think that United are had one of the most patient match going supports. Like United never got on David Moyes' back, notwithstanding what I thought was really unfortunate with Louis van Gaal when he got booed lifting the FA Cup. I don't really know where that came from. It certainly wasn't all the contingent, but it was noticeable. Notwithstanding that, the United fans were getting behind Amorim from start to end in a way that certainly would not happen at clubs of similar size. It would not happen at Real Madrid. It wouldn't happen at Barcelona. It absolutely wouldn't happen at Bayern Munich and teams like that. So, like other clubs of this size wouldn't stand for it, and United have kind of gone, well, we like a build. We don't mind a build. And it seemed under Amorim in particular that we were prepared for like someone to come in and do a complete cultural reset and get ages to do it. But the more and more the players couldn't understand it, the more he seemed to sort of, in the end, he threw his toys out of the pram. And I think I was one of those people who was like, well, here we go again, we start again. But what's Carrick and his team have done is shown, like you say, that he kind of understands. He's got back to basic principles and used really strong players in the right way. So to give you the really short answer on that, I'll be amazed if Michael Carrick is one of the very best coaches in the world right now. But he's been an improvement, and he and his team have been an improvement. And because he already understands the culture of the club, I think that you need to guarantee it's a definite upgrade. So if you bring in Carlo Ancelotti or Luis Enrique, I think there's a really strong case, because then you can say that they are the amazing coaches of the time. Ancelotti is absolutely untouchable. He's going to get a tune out of any violin. And Luis Enrique plays some of the most exciting football that you've seen, and he doesn't care about egos, and he's got a personality. He wouldn't be overwhelmed in the way that some of these managers have. So I think there's a case for sort of a couple of managers, but I think they're few and far between. And I think that others would quickly find pressure, and you would go, okay, what did they win? When did they manage a club of this size? Can they compete? Because it's not the same job. You're not driving this. David Moyes found out it's not the same job even when it's the same league. So yeah, I think it's a good point. Have you got a presence at away games? Have you going to get people going down to this one?
Yeah, so we've got members that travel, like fanatics. They travel to all the away games, so they'll be going to the. It's difficult because it's a Friday. It'll be the day of Eid, but I'm pretty sure there will be a group of lads, and male and female actually members are quite active in terms of away games. So there will be a group. So we've got like a WhatsApp community where we have different groups for aways and homes and whatnot. So I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of content. It's useful because they'll send us content and we get to post that content online, which is good.
And where can people find you?
So we're on X, so at MUM_SC. We're on Instagram at Man United Muslims.
And what happens in terms of home games? You must be sort of making your presence felt a bit more. Have you got any blocks, or have you got a chat with the club about doing anything like that?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one. So there's loads of us with tickets. We all go to the games. There's a huge, number of us. I feel uncomfortable about us putting a block together because I think it will attract negative attention. So that's why so far that hasn't been discussed. I just don't know how we perceived with the way things are. We get a lot of negative attention anyway. I can just imagine what would be said if, there was a big group of us, and I just don't know. Maybe that's my own insecurities or how we might feel, but it's just, I don't know how welcome it would be.
Yeah, totally get it. So let's talk about Bournemouth specifically and the rest of the season then. I mean, how do you feel it's going? What are your hopes for? We've gone from thinking, well, maybe it's European qualification to like, we'd all be disappointed, wouldn't we, now, if United didn't get Champions League football, especially after great results last weekend?
Yeah, so a fifth, do they qualify if you're fifth?
Well, it depends on the coefficient, so I think it's yet to be determined. It looked like it was almost guaranteed until this midweek, but
Yeah. So I think if fifth is included, I think we're pretty much done for Champions League. I know you should never say that, but it looks pretty good. It's all in our own hands. I think our running is not that bad either. We need to beat Bournemouth. For me, will be a tougher game than Villa. I was worried about Villa, but we played really well. Bournemouth have been on a bit of good form, and I think they've been a bit of a bogey team for us as well, haven't they? So it's hard for me to call it. I think sometimes, even with the form that we've been putting in, you just don't know what United are going to turn up. Yeah, it's a tricky one to call.
here's an even trickier one. It looks like that fifth place might be between Liverpool and Chelsea as it stands. Would you prefer that the Champions League spots were just down to 4 places?
What, just so that both of them didn't qualify?
Would you take that now if it were offered to you?
Yeah, as long as we qualified, that would take it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the gamble, isn't it? Like, if you thought that either Liverpool or Chelsea, which therefore could be Liverpool, wouldn't qualify, where's Chelsea's business model? What happens to Liverpool?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, I don't think it's not risky. It's not a huge risk because I think our running is more favourable when you look at Chelsea and Liverpool. I'm not sure, but Chelsea is very dangerous, their running.
I want to ask you finally, because I talked to Craig there about Iraola, who's one of the names on the list for United. Where do you stand on next manager?
To be honest, I haven't got a look. So Carrick's done an amazing job. I think if it was up to me, I would love someone like Enrique. I really like Enrique's style of play. Watched them last year in the Champions League, and they actually reminded me of the old United style, 4-4-2, like with wingers and pressing. I was just watching the football and I really liked it. Whereas most football we watch nowadays, we just don't like it. I don't know about you, but it's very robotic, and his style of play I really like. He would be my preference, but if it was Carrick, no problem. I do like the Bournemouth manager, actually. I think he's done really well. They started the season really well. They sold their entire back four, but he was doing all right. They've had a bit of a wobble. But again, it's like another gamble, isn't it? I just don't think we can take another gamble. We've done that a few times, but then we've also hired experienced managers and they've also, struggled. Yeah, as long as it's not Southgate, I'll take anyone.
The universal no Southgate message.